عنه قال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. So this theme of hypocrisy will go on for maybe 2 weeks or so. So I can cover all the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ talked about. There's not a lot of them, interestingly enough. Like if you actually take Bab al-Nifaq in any of the books of hadith, if you actually look at the chapter, you don't find like a huge amount of them. Why? Because this is an issue that the Quran talked about a lot. The Quran didn't leave much for the Prophet ﷺ to add or to explain or to clarify. But he did give a few central ahadith that are more or less anthems today, meaning the hadith that most Muslims will be exposed to at some point in their lives, and they know them and they understand them. And I'll narrate them, inshallah, throughout these nights and explain why they're important. So he says, alayhi salatu, this hadith is a very simple one. This is a very, you may have another narration that you know about, but this is the one I'm going to narrate today. I'll narrate the other one another night. So, because there's a distinction and they're different. فقال آية المنافق ثلاث إذا حدث كذب وإذا وعد أخلف وإذا اؤتمن خان. And you can say, well, there's another hadith arba', we'll narrate that one later. I'll talk about that one later. But he said here, alayhi salatu wasalam, that the evidence or the signs of a munafiq are 3 things. If they speak, they lie. When they promise, they break their promises. They don't hold their covenants. And when they are entrusted with something, they don't see it through. They don't deliver what they were entrusted with the way they were supposed to deliver it. Meaning they're not trustworthy. Now this is important because, again, we come back to the same issue with with understanding the concept of hypocrisy and what it means. This is not ideological or theological hypocrisy, where you have on the inside a hatred towards something and you show the opposite. This is a practical hypocrisy. And what's the difference? The difference is very important. As a Muslim, up front, when you're asked what Islam means to you, or you talk about it, the values of the deen, if you're sat down, okay, what is Islam about? Then, if I put a gun to your head, you can say, I have to be honest, truthful, you have to be truthful. And you have to always, be trustworthy. You have to be good, so that you know that. Yeah. So why are the behaviors not aligned with the belief system? Like, why do you claim that that's the case? Because you said La ilaha illallah, right? Muhammad Rasulullah. So you accepted Islam, and you're saying these are the values of Islam. So why aren't your practices reflecting the values of Islam, the core values of Islam? You see, the Prophet ﷺ didn't give an example of nifaq by talking about secondary issues within the deen that you can break. Interestingly enough, he didn't even look at ahkam shar'iyya. He didn't talk about breaking rules, like drinking alcohol, for example, or committing. No, he didn't talk about that. He talked about the core values of the human race. He talked about the basic stuff. It's interesting to think that way. That the Prophet ﷺ is telling you, you see, honesty, loyalty, and trustworthiness, the 3 ethics that he's talking about. إِذَا حَدَّثَ كَذَبْ إِذَا وَعَدَ أَخْلَفْ إِذَا اؤتُمِنَ خَانَ. You have to be truthful or honest. You have to be loyal to your word, and then you have to be trustworthy. These ethics that he's talking about, alayhi salatu, are not specific to Islam, are they? Are they specific to Islam? Not at all. They're not even specific to any religion. They are widespread human ethics that almost every decent person on the planet agrees to. Yet, if you don't practice them as a Muslim, you're seen as a munafiq, waliyadu billah. You're seen as the worst of the worst. إن المنافقين في الدرك الأسفل من النار ولن تجد لهم نصيرا. Indeed, the munafiqeen are in the lowest part of Jahannam. You'll find no one to stand by them. No one's willing to stand by them. It's a very scary thing. Very scary. Terrifying. So it's almost saying that in order for you to be Muslim, you have to have the basic ethics of human decency. The basic ethics have to be there. If they're not there, then we can't even talk about it. There's no use of talking about other aspects of Islam. There's no use of talking about prayer and siyam and zakah. If the basic ethics aren't there, it's very problematic. Very problematic for us to be praying in the first line, yet we cannot speak the truth when needed. Yet we can't be trusted. Yet we are not able to see through our word when we offer it. When we make a promise, we break it. It's a problem because it's a schizophrenic effect. It's hypocrisy. That's the word means, hypocrisy. How is it that you stand here and you claim to be close to God, and then the basic ethics of humanity don't exist? It doesn't work. This hadith is not used for labeling. You don't look at someone who lies and not trustworthy and say this is a munafiq. You do that, then you have just made the biggest mistake of your life. Because now you claim to know what's on the inside. The Prophet ﷺ said, ayatul munafiq. Ayah. Ayah is different. It's not, it doesn't give you the ability to label. It doesn't give you the ability it's a sign. A sign is not, it's not a diagnosis. You can have some signs, maybe, but it's not a label you can give somebody. This is for me, and this is for you. You listen to this hadith and you think about it for yourself. Do I speak the truth? When do I stop? Is there a time where I stop? Am I trustworthy? Can I be trusted? If I give my word, do I keep it? Or am I a person of my word? Do I break my word? Those are the questions you have to ask yourself. Because if we're not doing them, then you start feeling, maybe there's an aspect of me that is not correct. Because if you want to cash in Yawm al-Qiyamah with your deen, if you want La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah to be there for you, he's looking at those basic ethics of humanity. Do you have them? Because if you don't, then there's a label that he can give, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Here's the fear of this. You see the label of nifaq? The only one who can give it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And He will give it to people on the Day of Judgment. Some people will be labeled like that, munafiq. Imagine coming like that, Yawm al-Qiyamah. How do you get rid of that? No matter what you do, you can't wash it off because it's been labeled. And you go label someone like that, you're acting like you know what's inside of them. And if you do, then may Allah bless you. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you the basira, the insight, so you can see what's going on the inside, you have a good for you. I don't have that. But if you don't have it, then you have no reason to label people. And this hadith, and none of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ are there for us to label people. The Sahaba didn't dare label people. The Prophet ﷺ didn't even tell the Sahaba who they were. You would think he would at some point. He didn't. He left it with one person and told him, you tell no one. You tell no one. This stays between you and God. You just make sure that they don't reach any form of governance and authority in the Khilafah. Oh, so you don't tell people. It's very interesting that we weren't told who they were. That the Prophet ﷺ wouldn't do it. The sitr was more important, because that's the point. The point is not to label. They're not a group of society. It's not that there's a Muslim mushrikeen and then here's the harat al-munafiqeen, here's their neighborhood. No, they're people who prayed with the Prophet ﷺ, who attended Jum'ah. Do you understand what it would mean to you and me if one of us could say, I prayed behind the Prophet ﷺ? What would that mean to you? Or I attended the khutbah of the Prophet ﷺ. You wouldn't walk anymore. You wouldn't need people to carry you around with your imam would be so big and needs 5 people to hold it because you prayed behind the Prophet. There are munafiqeen who prayed behind the Prophet ﷺ. There are people who did it. So it doesn't mean, it's an important, why? Because إِذَا حَدَّثَ كَذَبَ وإذا وَعَدَ أخلف وإذا أؤتمن خان. Just basic stuff. You go back to the basics. Nifaq is a scary thing because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to use it to label us. And if we don't take care of these basic stuff, then we could be used to label it. And I'm just going to leave you with that for now, and we'll talk about this a little bit more tomorrow. يروي الإمام البخاري والإمام مسلم كل في صحيحه عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم آية المنافق 3 إذا حدث كذب وإذا وعد أخلف وإذا أؤتمن خان صدق رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين